All right, we're on.
Yeah,
We're back. Wait, should we do this?
Nice.
Nice. Well, this is another amazing episode of Creative Appetite. Today, I'm joined by my legend of a friend, Patty. This has been 12 months, possibly, in the making. We have not been able to line this up. For the amount of times that we've tried, it seems like it was like one of those long lost loves, you know, when you meet someone overseas and you're just trying to get back to them and you just can't. That's pretty much what's happened. Except this is the first time we've locked eyes. So
Yeah, no, it's small table. It works.
it's so good. I think we're all doing. What are we? Are we on? Yeah, I just had to check the other little mics. Yeah, I mean the hotel edition kind of now looks like we're doing some OnlyFans in here, but I want to let everyone know it is strictly business.
For the record, I'm not doing OnlyFans.
No, for the record, I mean your social media might get a little bit excited more than mine. It's not much, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm clean. I'm a Christian.
just roll on it.
I didn't sound good, did it?
I think we're digging ourselves a bigger hole. Oh man, it's so good to be back. I feel this 12 months, or like the first half of this year has been so slow, man. For me personally, just with this project, it seems to be going on and off. But like, it's been like affected through my personal life, like the stuff that I've been trying to do in my personal life, like changing jobs and things like that, and then. It just slips out of your hands so quick. Like you think you're on top and you're like doing it, and then all of a sudden it's just like poof and it's gone. You're like shit. Yeah, so rough, but it is good to be here. I mean, we have to give Benny a shout out. I feel like if we don't shout out Benny, he's gonna get real upset.
So long story short, I met this lovely human through Benny Watson. He's well known in the CrossFit space, for doing media. And basically he jumped on. I trolled him for a little bit, a bit of banter, I'd like to call it. And 12 months later, we're here. And we've been trying to organise this for a while now. And this weekend has, lined up. And yeah. Yeah,
it just worked out perfectly. I finished work a little bit earlier. I was like, all right, it's got to go. We're going to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah.
But it's cool, man. And it's so good to finally get it happening. I'm like so happy to finally record it. It's like when you're like trying to climb a mountain and you keep getting pushed back when you just get so close to getting to the top, and it's like you never know why you can't just like get there.
Yeah, when you think you're at the peak, then you come over the little crest and there's another section to go, and it's like damn, but it's all part of it.
It's all part of it. It is. Well, as we were just talking just before, like you've had a bit of a interesting background, like moving into like what you do now, which is like full-time media and stuff.
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know you, I guess because you're like massive in the CrossFit world in terms of like photography and stuff. That's what we're saying.
That was a good plug.
What's up?
Not sure about that one, but yeah.
But yeah, like you're obviously well known. Like people do.
Trying to hold back my blush here.
This man is flattering. But yeah, like I guess a lot of people probably don't. No one really like the thing with photographers though. Like no one, you could be like so like really really good, but because you're not like in the limelight in terms of like in front of the lens, it seems to me that for media purposes, most people that are doing like media know each other. Like they're like, oh yeah, that's Patty. Like he's been here for ages in behind the scenes area, like in the actual because you're on court, but you're just like on the outskirts, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's cool to like finally. I like to bring light to those kind of things because like you're just as important as everyone else that's competing, if that makes sense. Because without you guys, none of this really goes like it doesn't work. Yeah. So, but for anyone who doesn't know you, could you probably maybe explain a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and things like
that? So from far north Queensland, did schooling there, high school, and when I finished, dabbled in a few things, university, and tried like. Being behind a desk and found out that wasn't really for me. So from there became a tradesman. So became a plumber and gas fitter. And so I went the blue collar route. And it was more for me just because I I just liked being outdoors, and I know just it's a bit more my personality than being stationary in like a cubicle, and that took some time to work out. That's what I wanted to do, and basically when the mining boom happens around 2012, 2013, I moved to Gladstone, where my brother moved to Gladstone as well, and he's a tradesman as well, and there was a mining boom, and essentially we pretty much, you're there to save money kind of thing, and yeah, you did spend a bit as well, like, it comes hand in hand at times, but my brother was playing rugby, and he wanted to get fitter basically like in the sport, and he found CrossFit, and for me that's basically where I accidentally found the GoPro and all that jazz, and like over time that was the beginning of doing film and doing photography. So yeah, it was like it wasn't an intentional kind of thing, because you got this bit of money hanging around, and you're young, and you're in this thing called the mining boom. And so I just went and bought like multiple GoPros, because I was into mountain biking as well, and basically just played around with that, and then basically brought the GoPro into the gym and just started filming like gym members and like all the athletes that were training for like comps and that.
How did it go? Like, have you always been like fascinated by creativity in terms of like, filming on videography and stuff like that? Or was it just kind of like, as you said, like you were just in the mind, you did have a bit of money, you're like, and your brother's probably like, oh, we should try like maybe just film some stuff?
I've always appreciated it. I just didn't know if that was something I wanted to do. Like, I always loved seeing like other creators on social, but it was never, it was just purely by accident. And I don't know, it was never, as a kid, like you don't know what you want to do until you're there kind of thing. It was never the direction, so to speak. So it's purely by accident kind of thing. And when you get there, you go, I don't mind this. So it was never the plan or anything like that. Like in terms of my whole family, and like it was never the plan to begin with. Like you don't know until you have a go kind of thing.
That's hectic. It's so crazy to think that you just had no desire, like not no desire, but you never thought of it as something that could be like a tangible job, if that makes sense. But now you're like traveling around everywhere and you're doing it full time.
Yeah.
So what year did you say you started doing videography?
Picked up the GoPro 2012. So it was basically from doing overseas trips to NZ, if you want to call it that.
So many hours on that plane.
Like doing mountain biking trips, and it started from that. It was a big flight.
A lot of jet lag.
Compared to going on the West Coast anyway. But,
that's hectic, right? Like you can fly to New Zealand in 3 hours, and then to fly to Perth is like 6.5 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy, hey. But
that's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty beneficial here in Brisbane, but yeah. And so we did that a fair bit, and you do heli biking, then trying to level up like the whole filming thing, and then CrossFit came along. Then it was one of those things where you could make money, and it's one of those things where you're around it a lot more than going on a trip, so to speak. So you always had your camera out for that when you're at the gym.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Hey, it's a funny old thing. Like, I was thinking this on the way down, actually driving here. I was thinking about like life and how it has so many twists and turns. And if you don't like, not to be like cliche, I'll say like if you don't seize the moment, it won't happen or anything like that. But you can be doing something and think your trajectory is, you're like, yes, this is me, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then all of a sudden, something can just like appear and like fully divert like the journey that you thought you were going to be on.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that over 10 years ago now, for yourself, you started playing around with GoPros. And mind you, those GoPros back then would have been absolute poo in terms of like the quality of cameras to what you can get now. And to think that in like just over 10 years now, you like fully immersed in like the media scene, because you're not only immersed in like the CrossFit stuff, like that's probably I'd say would be what you're probably most known for, right?
Yeah, probably more.
In terms of like athletes and stuff that
Yeah.
you're a photographer, but then you also, as we've spoken about, like you do go over to other areas, like you went back to the mining industry to like do some filming and stuff for those boys. And
Yeah, I went to the mines as well because I've got the background to work there, and so I had all the like I had the construction white card and all. Just being a tradie helps, and got in through a friend to do like surveying like of mine sites, like the deposit over in like Western Australia, where most of the mines are, and yeah, just started doing that kind of stuff. Then after that was the army, and just filming for the army. And you're in the rainforest going, what am I doing here? But at the same time, you love it. Like it's just like I say it in the nicest way. Like it's like pretty cool to be doing stuff like that. But it's just like, what the hell? I'm in the forest. You know what I mean?
I think you'd be such a great example of someone who just like takes life by the balls or the horns, however you want to bloody say it. Dump it in so many different ways. But like, because you know how there's like, for me, for example, being the creative scene, I've seen so many people be like so tunnel visioned on what they're doing. So they might just be like, no, I only shoot models, or no, I only do like this type of thing or whatever. But for you, you're just so versatile. Like you could be doing the CrossFit stuff, then you're down with the army, then you're out with the mines, and then you're flying somewhere else. So like, how did you, I guess, would your outlook be like you just take what comes with like open arms kind of thing?
Yeah, well, Australia being a smaller country, like compared to the US and where the CrossFit Games is and all that, I think you got to take everything. You can't. It's nice if you want to do it as a hobby to have a niche and just do portraits and that like that and like stuff like that and just isolate certain areas. But if you want to have an income, pretty much something to live off, you have to take everything. You can't just take a job around the corner and expect something like around the corner again the following week to do work there of some sort. Like you can't. It's not really a local based job.
Yeah, you're quite versatile. Hey, like you do so many different things. And how is that going from the mines where like money's been like, because it's a pretty wealthy job in terms of no matter what age you kind of do it, like you can make a lot of money and it's consistent enough that you can budget for these kind of things. So how did it go transitioning out of the mines and then into full-time photography and videography?
To be honest, it just felt like, okay, I'm doing this on Friday and now it's Monday because I was already doing a lot of filming at the time, and then the transition it just felt like it was nothing basically because over time. And it's okay, it's Friday, I'm finishing this job. Now it's Monday, I'm doing this. It didn't feel like holy kind of thing because the workload was already there.
Yeah, so you'd kind of been building it up in your off weeks then you just had enough to transition out.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like a transition until maybe 2 months in, going, okay, I'm doing this now. Like when you have time and you stop and take a look around, kind of thing. It's just crazy how it turned out, but yeah, if you're busy enough, I just think you don't really feel it as much. Like, oh, it's hit me like straight away.
Yeah, okay. Was there ever did you ever have moments where you're just sitting there by yourself thinking about, like, you were just sitting there, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna be doing this now, and like this is happening, and because as you said, like you sound like you're pretty close to your brother, obviously, like, and were you using him as like a bit of a like dummy to like see how good your filming was and like mucking around with him?
I was just filming the gym members with the GoPro, and I just enjoyed doing that. Like I remember just filming like a few of the members doing box jumps and all that kind of jazz, like in the gym, and just like filming like this. And if I slow it down, and what does that look like? And if I just do some some crazy, visual effects, and how does that look? You know what I mean? It's like it's a process thing that you just,
That's what Benny was saying. He said when he first started doing photography, when he was dating Shay, he was saying that they must add like a product something about one of the products sent him some stuff. I'm like, oh, can you like jazz this up? And he's saying he like was like throwing coffee beans and stuff in the air, and he was really trying to spice it up. And they're like, yeah, nah, man, they're like just keep it like simple. He's just like, oh shit, sorry. Because he just didn't know. He thought that he had to like really enhance the experience of what he was actually shooting rather than just stick to what he was really good at.
It's actually a good idea, but
I thought it was a good idea, but it mustn't have been what they wanted.
Sometimes you actually got to pull it off.
But it's so funny how like in your head, like when you're so naive and new to like a product, like a project, that you just think like what you think and what is reality is like two completely different things. Like you think you're just killing it in the game, and you actually just like you're going too far, like the opposite way.
Yeah. It's definitely, you gotta, when you're starting out, you don't know what you're doing, and you know it's an experiment. Put it that way. Like you throw it on the wall and see what sticks, and if you like it, you like it. You know, and if you like it, and you get some feedback. Whether it's positive or not so constructive, you'll know about it, and then you make your adjustments from there.
Have you ever done like any project where they've just been completely unhappy with what you did?
Oh yeah, like in your head you go, oh, this is pretty good. Then like when you got on the laptop or your computer, whatever, you go, that didn't turn out like it looks good on the camera, but in terms of when you go to edit it, it's just like, oh, okay, this is rubbish. I need to make the adjustment here.
There's going to be nothing worse than going out and filming and spending a whole day filming or taking photos, and then you get back to find it just looks like absolute dog shit.
Yeah, like you gotta swallow your ego there. Just when you think you've got it, and you get flattened like that, which is good. Like keeps you on your toes.
So at the moment, you said that you're working with the Brisbane Broncos, I believe.
Oh, management side of things.
Management side of things. So how does that work? Is that like you're helping with like the players, or?
Oh no, so yeah, I'm helping with a player at the moment, and so I just found through like doing media, there's other avenues to take, and having the connections with the brands in the CrossFit space. I know it's not rugby league. Basically, I've had the connections with the brands and just worked with athletes that way, and say, hey, would you like me to like take you on, kind of thing, in terms of doing the management and the marketing side of things, and basically it's just one of those things that grew from CrossFit, and it just transferred over to rugby league. And so Brianna Clark's my first rugby league athlete, and so she's with the Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah, mad. That's so cool. It's like you do the. I remember when I was chatting to Benny about you. He's like, this guy just does he just does so much stuff. I was like, it's crazy to see someone hustle in so many different avenues of life as well. Like Benny's a good example actually, because he just he's streamlined. He wants to streamline his photography, and that's what he wants to do. Where you just seem to want to do whatever's popping up at this time. So you're doing like management of players, or you just do photography. You're out with the army. You're up in the mines. Like you just seem to be doing so much.
I just and when you've done like media for a while, you look at doing other stuff. So I've got like same people in my shoes have been doing media for a while. They're managing athletes in Europe and the US, and obviously being here in Australia, I've decided to do that as like a bit of a side thing as well. And you've already got that connections with the brands from doing media. It was just an easy thing to do. And so in terms of starting up and like reaching out to athletes, like, hey, would you like to jump on board this little management business that I'm starting with athletes? And we're also doing marketing, and use the camera for that. And I just thought it was like a win-win situation. Like I know you just got to open up more doors than like if you want to grow. I think you need to stay progressive like that, or think like that.
Yeah, 100%. I reckon it's like if you're not like open to anything that comes your way, you could just be passing up an opportunity that might not be. I don't know. Like you just never know where life can take you. I think if you're not willing to just say yes to the thing that even if you probably don't even like it, but you did it anyway. You could, like, you either network with someone and you might meet someone, you might go, like, you could just go to lunch with someone by accident, and that could be a whole new world of something that you didn't even have any idea about. And that's why I like the power of, like, the creative scene and stuff like that, because it's so, like, the people that you brush shoulders with and who you speak to and who you get to meet, it's so, like, rewarding in terms of, like, most of the time in my previous jobs, they're very, like, traditional kind of jobs, and I never found it that interesting. And now, like, even at the moment, I'm in sales, so that's quite interesting, like, the people you meet doing that. And it's just funny how, like, the power of networking can really, like, alter or enhance your experience of life, because you can literally just, like, walk down the, like, you know, you and I met through someone else, and that was
that's
like,
right. It's just easy to connect.
Yeah, and it's just like you can just keep jumping, and it's kind of like just following your nose kind of thing, where you're just like, oh, yep. And if you just be your authentic self, most people respond to that really well, and then they're like, oh, yes, I like that guy. And then all of a sudden you're like managing people, and then you're just like, oh, I don't know, even like.
Yeah, and saying that too, like, that was never part of the plan. That was something that I never wanted to do. Like, that's probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done so far, where I'm only 6 months into the whole management side of things, but we just had, like, one of our biggest comps, the Torian Pro, here in Australia.
Yeah,
and
I missed that. I didn't get down for that. I know Benny was there for that, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty, like, epic turnout. Like, it's massive. It's a stadium, and it's, like, it's packed out. You know, they got flames and everything, and
Right, pyrotechnics everywhere. It actually reminded me of the CrossFit Games a little bit in terms of the way it's set up.
It's, like, on another level. And so, like, seeing one of the athletes qualify, then having almost two qualify, like, I had one sitting in second place on the second night, so it's a 3-day comp for the Indy, and it's just cool to have that experience with them and build that relationship with them. And so I just found that more rewarding than, you know, anything that money could buy kind of things. That's stuff that you always remember. And so, like, I'd like to have that relationship with them 10 years from now, when they're, like, got kids and stuff, and it's like, oh, I knew your mum or I knew your dad when it was just first starting out. And that would be, like, a very cool experience. And it's worth more than money, put it that way.
With your management, do you, so, like, these athletes are in, like, second place or something in this Torian Pro, do you ever have to give, like, advice to them to, like, manage their emotions and stuff like that, or is it more they have, like, another team of people that are kind of, like, helping them through that process of, like, the stress of the competition?
For the most part, they were fine. Like, I'm sure behind closed doors, you know,
they're freaking out.
Yeah, like, for the most part, like, they held their head high kind of thing. And, like, for young athletes, like, most of my Aussie athletes, the crop that I've got are, like, 22, 23. And the way they held themselves, like, it was easy work in terms of, like, you know, their day-to-day and how they were going kind of thing. Like, to be honest, I did nothing. But just being there is, I think, you know, good enough for them kind of thing. But obviously, if they had like, issues, I'm sure they would address it, you know, in some way. But for the most part, yeah, they were fine. Like, yeah.
And how does, like, management work? Because I've never really spoken to someone who's done management, and I mean, you've only just started, but do you just put them in touch with, like, sponsors, and, like, you help them, like, book them in for, like, events and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's just so through sponsors, you reach out to the sponsors and say, I've got this athlete. Basically, this is what they've done. This is how old they are. This is what they like. If they want longevity, they look at age as well. Don't get me wrong; they'll take on anyone, but, you know, depending on what they're doing and what they've done. But they seem to ask a lot about how old they are, because they want that relationship.
Yeah, they can, like, build something. They don't want more, especially for an athlete who's probably on his way out.
Yeah.
Thing, it's not really going to bring much to them.
Like, especially now, I think in Australia, it's actually becoming a thing, like a management, like, marketing kind of position. And I think, and I've seen a lot of brands ask, like, how old are they? Because they really want that relationship to blossom kind of thing over the next 10 years and, you know, grow that way. And so it's hard, like you're saying, to have that 1 or 2 or 3 year kind of relationship, then, like, I'm going to go do something else, or I'm going to retire. So they look for longevity.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic. I've never really done anything with management, but I always wonder what they do because I know they obviously. I know when I was doing like a bit of acting and stuff, I was like, you'd speak to managers and stuff like that, and I think they took like 10% was their cut, maybe I can't remember. But it's the industry of management is so interesting because it's like, if you don't work for them, like if you don't try to push your clientele, you're not going to get anywhere, if that makes sense. Like you really have to actually start reaching out to like different brands and really put in a lot of effort. Otherwise, it's not like you can't just sit on the sideline kind of thing. Like it's not going to be a profitable business.
Yeah, you've got to move. And that's like with everything else. I think people get comfortable and they don't move as much, if that makes sense, and they just take it for granted. And I think you've got to stay busy, and you're always thinking about either if it's media or if it's the whole management side of things. You're always thinking about it, and like don't get me wrong, you can switch off, but for the most part, you are thinking about it, and you need to, and you can't be, kicking back kind of thing. Otherwise, that's just a reflection of what the business is doing, and so you've got to always be switched on and you're always thinking, like the cog's always turning, put it that way.
Laying in bed at 2 a.m, shit, and then send that email.
Oh, and it gets like that. Yeah.
I mean, my things are not on that level, but I do have those same problems. I find that I'm constantly chasing my brain, trying to figure out if I've forgotten anything. I should really get better at the management side of like just having a journal and writing everything down.
Yeah.
It's never ending. It's a never ending cycle.
I'm glad Excel spreadsheets were invented. Otherwise, it helps me a lot in terms of like sending invoices out, like to sponsors and all that kind of jazz. And so that's how, like, you do have to plan yourself. Like I was pretty bad at the start and with that kind of stuff, but you need to level up, be that professional. You have to do all that boring admin stuff, but you really have to do it. But like for me now, it's becoming easier. At the start, it's just like should I be even doing this? Like thinking I could remember everything, but you don't. No. So there's going to be stuff that you miss.
Yeah, especially for you too. Like I'm sure you're like, because you are so versatile, there'd be so many different like areas that are like taking your energy, and if you don't have it all like documented down, you could find yourself come unstuck, especially with like dates and things like that. You'd really need to be on top of everything.
Yeah. That's definitely happened. So, and I think that's happened to most people as well as time goes through. But like I've almost like went, I've got to go out today, like fly out today, and knowing that I've double booked the job. Sometimes like, oh my god, it's the same date.
So that's what happened to me, guys. Just want to let you know, you double booked me. It's all right. It's all good.
No, that never happens.
Off the record.
But yeah, stuff like that. And so you are going to make mistakes, but obviously you're going to refine it as time goes by.
And how would you say, like, what's the difference between, like, how was the first CrossFit Games you ever went to? Like, do you remember being booked for it, like, and being asked to go and do it?
First time I went was a spectator, and I just, like, in terms of the atmosphere, like, it's the only sport where if someone's in front of you, this is at the CrossFit Games, and they get up and they're cheering someone on, like, the person behind you's going to get up and cheer them on as well. It's not like they're sitting down kind of thing. Like, the Games is just something special where people, like, are fully into it, and just, I don't know if they even know the athlete, like at a personal level, but they are invested in that person, in that athlete that's competing, and they're just full on cheering on them like they've known them since day one kind of thing.
They really want people to like succeed in there.
Yeah, and being the times that we live in, everyone's got mobile phones, and if you look, they call it the Coliseum, the main stadium, and you can see the lights like with their mobile phones, and it's just the whole atmosphere is just lit up, and it's like it's phenomenal. Like it's the only sport where you'll see where people are fully engaged like that. It's probably the closest thing is probably football or soccer, if you want to call it that. Like everyone's like fully like invested in it.
And then how did it go from being a spectator to then going and like taking photos and stuff like that?
Pretty nerve wracking because it's like full on the top. But the first couple of years were like that. But I think over time, it's like anything else, man. It's you get used to it. But the first one was like Yeah, like what the hell? These are like the people you look up to, and now you're next to them, kind of thing.
Yeah, like stand next to them, shooting them, and like taking photos. Because there must be how many like photographers are at that event? There'd have to be heaps.
Mate, every year it was just like
Doubles, more and more.
it's 20, then now it's 40, and it just keeps going up and up and up and up. And so more sponsors come on, and more micro sponsors, and like other agencies, and like all that jazz. And yeah, it's like you're meeting new people every year in the media space in CrossFit land, and it's just like holy hell, yeah.
It's like Wonderland in Sydney, the big amusement park.
Pretty much the same thing, because you're just going through and just meeting all these people, and it changes year to year too. So like CrossFit's pretty much the same, but like some parts of the media changes as well, where it's regulated, and some years it's like it's not so regulated. Like you get 14-year-olds who've got like a blog, and they've got a camera out, and they've got a media pass.
Oh, okay. So in terms of like regulation, you're saying like sometimes they really like narrow it down to like only like, I don't know, let's say well-known photographers for the lack of a better term. And then they sometimes open it up a bit more to like, maybe like a vlogger or someone like that to just try to push it a bit more.
Yeah, even though like they're regulated, it's still building in numbers. So there's still people there, and sometimes, yeah, it's a funny beast, CrossFit. Like to fully understand it, like you've got to be in it, and it's just, yeah, like it's not like rugby league or any other sport where you know what to expect every year. Like some of the most well-known like media people, they're flat out getting a media pass for next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it's like it's just constantly evolving. Like you're not guaranteed
evolving,
to actually get a shot.
It's very competitive. Like it's just as competitive as being on the floor as an athlete, and that's what I'm finding. Like more sponsors are coming on, and so that's going to bring on more media attached to that, more cameras and MCs and all that kind of jazz, and there's only so much floor space, and so
maybe I should go MC it.
Yeah, maybe MC it.
Creative appetite. I reckon we could do it. I actually want to get into that business, like MC and hosting events. I feel like it'd be so much fun.
Which sport would you do, starting off wise?
Oh, that's what's going on here. Hey, there you go. So I don't know why that sounded so weird. Sorry guys, my microphone was, my ear plug was not in properly. Anyway, dude, I was like, it's so like half. I was like, what's going on here? I was just staring at it. Anyway, I think I'd really want to start off with the festival first. I think that would be a vibe. Do like Splendor or something like that. And then for a sport, I think probably rugby union, because that's close to the...
So you'd probably have to start off with a small festival and grow.
Yeah, I did one small festival last year, and that was hectic. It was so much fun, yeah. There's a small festival up at Agnes Waters, probably about...
Oh, nice.
Maybe like 2,000 people, something like that. It's pretty cool.
Was it the Blues Festival?
No, it was called Spring in the Vale. It was like this, a friend of mine, his friend has a farm, and she ran it on that.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was pretty hectic.
If you got a farm, do it.
Oh, so much fun. I had the best time. But I think like something like that would be really fun. I definitely would love to host CrossFit Games. I think that would be just a vibe, just to wind everyone up. Like it'd just be it'd be so intense. Like just
it'd be intense, but like when you look back on it, like after the weekends happens, like you probably be fully invested in it. Like, hey, what next? And you probably start looking at other overseas comps, because there's only so many here in Australia. This as an example.
Yeah.
So, if you were going to go the CrossFit route as an MC,
I wouldn't even know who to like talk to be honest. But you never know.
Well, a lot of the times it's just, the DMs on Instagram, just DM them. And if you don't get anything back, email them. And I'm sure you'll know someone who knows someone.
Just start name dropping all the people that I know that's in the CrossFit world.
Yeah,
start dropping Dave at Wanderlust in Bali. Just be like,
oh, Dave.
Oh, God. Oh, he was meant to come on actually. Except I always kept missing him when I was in Bali. So I'm going back in August. So I'm going to try to get him on then.
Oh, yeah, good guy.
He's a unit. Oh, Dave.
He long story short, he slept on our floor for Down Under, because we only had 2 beds. So I had one, obviously, and Benny had one. And then I was like, oh, Dave's going to stay with us as well. So I'm just counting the beds, like 1, 2. And I said, where's Dave going? And he said, oh, the floor. And Dave was just happy to have the floor. Like, he's the nicest dude ever.
He's like a CrossFit hippie. That's what I would call him.
And for successful guy, he was just
he could literally go out and buy his own. He could afford to like have his own hotel, but he's so happy. Like he's over the moon just to be sleeping on the floor with the lads.
Yeah, that's the kind of person you want to be. Just be obsessed with being happy.
Yeah, and he's always doing stuff. Like he's obviously always training, but like now that he's dating Sean as well. It's like 2 peas in a pod for those two. You see them just like living the best life. And he's always like wandering down the beach in the morning, drinking his coffee. Shout out to Dave. Anyway, we'll tag him in this. We'll make a little clip of him. He'll be like, wow.
Yeah, good guy.
That's the craziest thing. Like literally through Benny, I've met you, I've met Dave, and a bunch of other like really cool people as well. And it's just so. I think with the CrossFit world, there's such a community around it. Like everyone is happy to be involved. Like even if you don't like train intensely, you can still be a part of the community, and everyone is so happy to have you there.
Yeah, those days are gone. The training intense. Well, not that I was there, but I was more than a 3-day a week CrossFitter. That's business owning reduced that.
Now it's just training the fingers.
Yeah, training the keyboard, editing that. Like that's what I'm referring to, editing.
Keyboard warrior on Facebook.
Yeah, keyboard warrior. Yeah.
Oh man, that was like because obviously a lot of people probably don't even know this, which I only found out recently. But was Tia the first person that you like the first athlete that you photoed like photographed over at the CrossFit Games? Was that how you kind of like
her and
cruised into it?
Like the gym members. So yeah, in the mix. Like so, yeah, she would have been.
Because I never knew. Because I only found out recently, like as you were saying as well. Like Benny's flying over there now, or actually he should be in America right now.
Yeah.
And he's photographing one particular athlete.
Emily DeRoy.
Yeah. So is that kind of how it works for the dynamic of all the photographers? Like someone's probably got like there'd be like the official photographer who would just take photos of everyone, and then there'd be like individual photographers for like individual athletes.
So you got your in-house media team, and so it's split up between your live broadcast and your post media team. So your post media team like films it there, and then they go back to their hotel room or their media suite, and they edit that on the laptop, and that pretty much goes on socials. And so what Benny's doing, he's going over there at the moment to film Emily, who happens to be one of my athletes. A little bit of a plug there. And so yeah, she's he's over there basically filming her and just working off her sponsors, and so that'll be the bread and butter for him. That'll be his job whilst he's over there.
So are you technically his boss then?
No, I don't view it as that.
Damn. I was going to send him a message.
He technically, like the sponsors would be, because he has to do stuff to what they want, and so I'm just, you could say like
you're like managing him, managing her.
I'm just in the middle.
You're like the
put
middle.
It that way, yeah.
Let's break down some of like a bit of sponsorship stuff, because I think for a lot of people, most people probably don't ever really get to experience like the sponsorship world, if that makes sense. So for you, when a sponsor reaches out to you, let's say LSKD for example, because those guys seem to be on everyone.
Yeah.
Like they've just got their finger in every single pie. Like do you know We Got the Chocolates podcast?
Yeah.
They're like sponsoring them.
Oh really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they are anymore, but they definitely were like when I first heard about We Got the Chocolates. I'm like, who aren't they involved in? Like, I don't know who their media team is, but they are definitely putting in some yards. They're like just contacting every single person.
Yeah, they're definitely putting in the work there. Like, they're killing it. And I just think they don't give the corporate vibe, and I just think people resonate with that. They're not like, look at us kind of thing. We're just like you, and that's what I like about them. That even though they're very successful at what they're doing, it still feels like they're in the startup phase which means like, you know, it's just, I don't know, it just feels more easygoing kind of culture that they've got in their HQ office in South Brisbane. So yeah, they're very laid back kind of people, but yet they're working hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the whole sponsor thing, when they reach out to you, they're like, hey, we want you to take X amount of photos with like maybe 5 photos for the one product and 10 photos for another one kind of thing.
So if for a sponsor, like if you're at a CrossFit comp, for example, it'll be like, hey, we like to have 30 stills, so 30 photos and 2 Instagram reels. That seems to be the standard at the moment if you're going for like a photo and video package. And so that covers enough for the weekends. You've got enough photos and enough, videos coming through. It gives the idea of what's going on.
Yeah, man.
But and saying that too, that you're only, if it's for a sponsor, you're only isolating most of the time, like a few athletes, is not like heaps. It's not like the whole entire event. And so it becomes easier when you're isolating a few athletes or even one athlete. And so, it's not that hard in terms of the actual work because you know what you're looking for, and sometimes you know what heat they're in, and so it's not that hard basically.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. It's interesting to like break down because I always find it's something that there's so many like different elements of like the creative world in terms of like your job that can get overlooked, I guess, in terms of like it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm a photographer, but there's so much like detail that's involved behind the scenes that people don't really get to understand.
Like in terms of like with sports, I think the biggest learning curve in sports doing media is speed. Like you got to be fast in terms of editing, and you got to have it out the next day. It's not like weddings where I know you've like wedding photographers, videographers, they've got like 3 or 4 weddings probably going on the go, but you don't have that month to to get a video out or to get an album of photos out. You've got to really be fast at editing. With sports, like it's got to be they want it now kind of thing, and so speed's the game. Like with quality, obviously, but it really has to be quick.
Yeah, how do you find that in terms of shooting? Because there's so many lights and there's so many like different elements in terms of what your lens is going to be picking up. You know, if it's too bright in one area or not, or you like stand in front of the athlete, but then there's like a bright light behind it and it like shadows them out. Are you constantly like adjusting your settings while you're on the move as you're shooting it?
Yeah, all the time. Like Australia and Europe, totally different. So when you're filming in the stadium, there's light flicker, and so you've got to adjust, your shutter speed. Like basically, you've got to drop it down to accommodate the light flicker because the lights run on different megahertz and all that kind of stuff, and you got to adjust to the region that you're in. Like Australia and America are quite similar, I've found, even though they're 2 different regions with their settings. So, you got PAL. And so I just think it's a lot easier to change over to the US than it is in Europe. Europe, I know the lighting there, I always seem to be adjusting my shutter a lot more over there.
And some dudes roll up with some ridiculous size lenses. Like, where the hell are they getting there? Like, and how do they move? You know, like the big sporting ones, like the big long white ones. How do they move with that?
Most for like a 600 mil lens, if you're going to punch out that far. So if you want to go beyond your standard 200, people rent the 600 lenses because that's a lens that you don't use that often because most of the time you're shooting at that focal length or a bit further at your mid-length kind of thing, but most of the time people will rent those lenses. That's what I've found anyway.
Because they're like $100,000, right? They're like not cheap lenses.
Yeah, that's a car.
That's insane.
That's more than the camera,
Because I know that they use them a lot in like rugby league and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is that because it's such a distance?
It's a lot further out, and those guys would carry multiple cameras that have the lenses already on it. So they'll accommodate from 600 to 200. So
kind of like a like a band with their guitars, they could just like roll in with different tunings. They're like, yep, sweet, just pull that one out. That'll be good.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that. You're like, what are you talking about? Don't worry, I'm across the board with all these things.
Yeah, same.
What would be like the biggest learning curve that you've found in life? Not just with like creativity. Is there anything in life that maybe a bit of like something said to you one time that's like stuck out, and then you've kind of like, you've gone through something that you're like, shit, what he said actually, yeah, that makes sense, and then it's helped you get out of like a bad space?
Taking shortcuts, don't take them. I think going back to like the spreadsheet scenario, I was like, oh, I can remember. I know this is more the management side, but that relates to everything you do. I think if you want to be, the professional, you got to do the small things right. And I just don't think you can take shortcuts if you want to, be in it for a while, like wanted to make a career out of it. You need to, basically you need to, dot the I's, cross the T's on everything. So, yeah, I think no shortcuts would be.
Don't be taking shortcuts, guys, all right?
That's just like, that's like in terms of learning, like basically take shortcuts in terms of like going on YouTube and how do I change this and that. I'm just talking about running it as a whole.
Once it starts to become a bit more of a business, then
in terms of learning, like it's completely different. Like you can isolate what you want to learn and go on YouTube, university, and learn it that way. But in terms of the business itself, there's no shortcuts.
Do you ever look back on like when you first started to where you are now and go through like the old photos that you used to take and go far out, like what was I doing?
I've got a friend who just before COVID hit, I took it's called the Mayhem Classic in Cookeville, Tennessee, so in the US, and like I didn't really do hip hop video, like have the hip hop in the background, and he always, Josie, if you're listening to this, he always randomly sends me that video on my DMs. I'm like, oh, cheers, mate, thanks. And it's just like a reminder of how cringe it was. And we laugh about it now, but yeah, it's just it's a good reminder. But like at the same time, you're thankful that you did it because you know what to look for, kinda.
I always sometimes go back and listen to the first episode.
Yeah, what's that like for you?
It's very interesting, to be honest. Like it wasn't. I think they're definitely getting better. People have told me they're getting better, so that's always a good thing. But it was when I first started to where I am now. Like when I first started, I was so hyped up on like the excitement of like starting a new project. So I'm like, I'm invincible. Like nothing can be it. But then when I look at that episode or the first couple of episodes, there was so much, not like waffling to the like. Because you kind of want to be, when you're talking to someone, you want to be engaging, talk a bit, but not too much that it starts to veer off and it like loses its momentum, if that makes sense. So you just end up like, it's like walking down through a maze and you get to a random wall and you're like, shit, how did I get here kind of thing? And you kind of stump yourself. So that was probably the biggest learning curve, I guess, for me, is that like, learning how to be a better speaker and a really good listener. I found it quite challenging at the start, trying to remember what people were saying, because I was so like I was like really trying to like.
How many episodes are you in now?
I'd say this is like 40, 42, 43, I think.
Oh, seasoned. You're a
I'm
pro now.
I'm no thousand podcaster. Like I think he's nearly hit 2,000. Joe Rogan.
Oh really? Yeah, he's like, I don't know. Does he do like multiple a week or?
Yeah, I think he does like 2 a day.
A day.
And he's doing like 2-3 hour podcasts a day. The most I did was 4.
Holy hell!
And that was an hour and a half each, or nearly 2 hours each.
Yeah.
That was my day of like, but at the same time, it had to be done. So there was a little bit of like, you just got to get through this.
Yeah.
But man, by the end of it, I was zapped. I was so like I just couldn't speak to anyone after that. I was like, I just need to not talk for a bit.
Oh, good learning curve. You know, it's like running a marathon. You might run one, or like if you're getting into it. Not that I run marathons, but I have.
We've already established that you don't train.
Yeah, like I have in the past, like in school. But yeah, like you know, you do one, and you go, this is too much. Then you know, you do 2, 3 later, and you're like, okay, I'm getting better at this.
Yeah, you scale it back a bit.
Yeah,
I think for me, currently at the moment, it's about quality over quantity. Like anyone can sit there and I could sit there all year and just punch out episode after episode. But I found that at the start it was necessary to like build momentum. But now I would just want to really be selective with the people that I have come on and start building momentum in terms of like the information that's been put out now through the podcast, through intriguing guests, rather than just having someone on for the sake of pushing out an episode.
yeah,
Like, it is obviously important to run consistency with episodes, and I do want to strive for that, but at the same time, I don't want to lose sight of the reason, like, to scale it, I think, to the next level is to have intriguing guests across the board, whether it be like a psychologist or, you know, a scientist or something, like start branching out in those areas as well and really start tapping into that kind of side of things. So that's the vision for it for the next 6 months anyway.
okay, cool.
But I mean, that's a very random side note.
Who have you got in mind? Like you know, you live here in Brisbane, sunny coast. Who have you got in mind that you would like to, DM pretty much and say, hey, would you like to come on? Who would be like that person for you? Who'd be the next person?
The next person I'm working on at the moment, there was a glass blower who she makes like really cool stuff, but she just got a batch of glass and is no good now for the rest of the year, so I had to scratch her out of the thing. Then there was who else was I going to get on? There's a friend of mine, Ty. He has like a marketing agency. I think he's doing some really cool stuff in that space in terms of like the programs he's designing and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So he's going to come on. Hopefully, he was going to come on tomorrow morning, but I haven't heard back, so I'll touch base with him. And then who else? There were a couple other people, but somehow my brain has like dissipated. Anyway, there's a lot of people, especially in Brisbane. There's a lot of people that you can get on, and there's a lot of people doing like really cool stuff. I think it'd be cool to have like a challenging conversation as well,
like an intellect kind of thing.
Yeah, more so like maybe if we had like different views on things, or
could you see yourself getting into the political space?
Nah, probably not political. I feel like politic.
That's like another level.
Yeah, and you could say things that could probably get misconstrued, and people would just be like, it can actually probably do more damage than good.
Yeah.
Because there's so much information readily available now about that kind of stuff, and I just don't think it would tie into what I'm doing, if that makes sense. It's just not. But it would be cool to like have those conversations, maybe with like a scientist or something. Even though I have no idea about science, so maybe I need to do some more research. I don't know. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of really cool people. There's actually a lot of cool people in Bali as well, that I've reached out to, who are willing to come on. So it's just about getting back over there, and there's probably about 3 or 4 good guests over there that I'd like to talk to. Like one's a professional surfer. Another one has a really successful restaurant over there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other guests in America I want to get in contact with, like some really, really big guests who are doing like crazy and work with like really high profile people. So those people as well. But it's now starting to come down to funding, and hopefully I want to start working on getting more brands on board to like just pitch the vision, because at the moment the following isn't as large, so I don't really have any backing in terms of like I can't go, hey, I can show you this. But if I have the guests booked in, maybe that might be an avenue. I don't know. But that's at the moment, that's probably about. Oh, there's the TTK Collective girls. They've just started this whole new clothing business.
Okay.
So I'd like to get them on board and like really help push their brand and stuff, which would be cool.
Just on Bali, in terms of like, this is a creators podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think like you're looking at Bali now, why do you think there's such a big creative, like, I don't know, a little creative pocket that's over there at the minute? Like, it just seems to be blowing up with, that's where the creators are going to. What do you think, having lived there, why do you think there's a lot of creators there at the moment? Why is there a big magnet over there?
It seems to me like it's just turned into like a melting pot of digital nomads. So there's a lot of people over there that are like vlogging, whether it be like there's like vloggers, models, people that are trying to design clothing brands, jewelry, like what do you call a jeweler? A jeweler? Yeah, that's what. Like I think because a lot of the people there now are from Europe and stuff. There's
Oh, really? Europe?
Yeah, a lot of Russians over there at the moment.
Yeah, right.
It must be because I feel like what's happened is like, so for Australia, Bali's super close. So we knew about Bali for a long time, but it seems to me the rest of the world have only just started to take notice about Bali.
Yeah.
So now there's this massive influx of like Europeans and like Americans, Europeans, all these different like ethnicities all moving to Bali because one, it was cheaper when they moved. It's not that cheap anymore. You can still find cheap places if you reach outside of like Canggu and Uluwatu and stuff like that.
Well, let's say you're going to a restaurant and, you know, you get dinner. You said you went, when was the first time you went? 2015?
2015 I think it was the first time I went. Yeah.
So when you went there, how much do you reckon you would have paid for dinner versus, you know, when you went there recently?
Oh, so the first time I went, I paid for dinner. I think I was paying maybe like less than $10 a meal. Like, and that's for like big meals too. So maybe like between like $2 to $8 a meal, I'd say. And drinks were probably about $2.
And now,
now if you go to like Canggu, we'll use Canggu for example because that's like the CBD. I'd say it's like the hotspot for expats.
Yeah,
you can go to a restaurant there and you would still pay like 200 Australian to eat out.
So would it be similar? Like if you're back
very
here
similar
home?
Very similar. So cocktails are about $5 cheaper. So here in Australia, you probably pay like 22 to 25.
Was that because of COVID? Like they were trying to bounce back from that, or do you think it was always going up that way?
I think it's just always going that way. Like inflation, it is like the amount of buildings and stuff that in construction that's going over there is insane. Like they are building, they're like predicting suburbs away now. So they're like, all right, in the next X amount of years. So they're building like 3 suburbs across from Canggu and like 3 suburbs like all around circumference of it. And it's just because of inflation because there's so many people moving in. But it's scary to think because it's not a, I don't know how you'd put it. So like America, for example, it's well established Western. Like they could have a big influx of people and a big influx of people could leave and it still wouldn't affect the economy that much. Where like in Bali, if a lot of people turn up and start buying up and all this stuff, but then everyone leaves Bali, their economy is going to crash. Like there's no, because it is solely based off tourism and people owning businesses. So a lot of Westerners are now coming in and buying up all these businesses and shops and stuff.
Yeah.
But God forbid if they were to ever leave, there's nothing to sustain that economy.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. That's just I mean, obviously I can't predict these things. I don't know anything about that. But like it seems to me, like in Australia, you can have like a massive influx over Christmas and then people can leave, but our economy doesn't change. Like we stay the same.
Yeah.
And we're still wealthy.
Yeah, we're very versatile. Like going back to the mines, you know, that helps Australia heaps. But having never really been in Bali, I could see that it's, you know, very transient. And so in a big way, you know, that's the main economy. And so, yeah, I could see it's been a big suck hole in terms of...
Yeah, it's huge, man.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like the only Balinese people I see in Bali are people working at the shops or working at the restaurants.
So it's like you back in Australia?
Yeah, so like, let's just say like you're in Australia, except the only difference is everyone working at the shops and restaurant are local.
Yeah.
Like that, apart from some of the chefs and stuff are from overseas.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of Western restaurants there now. And it's crazy. It's cool. Like it's a cool place to be and hang out there and stuff like that. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff happening there. However, it is also, I don't know, there was just something a little bit off about Bali. I don't know whether it's because there's so many different cultures and stuff there as well. Like you'd really just.
So would you say you enjoyed yourself the first time you went there?
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself the first time. There was a lot of different factors. Like I was a lot younger and stuff as well. And now that I've gone back a little bit older, I still enjoy it, but I'm enjoying it for different reasons, I guess. Like it's not. Yeah, I don't know. But it also, because there's so many different. Yeah, there's so much like diversity there that it makes it quite an interesting place. Like you could, especially if you were coming from a country of like Australia, where let's say you were from a small country town, if you only knew Australians, and then you went to Bali, you could easily make 10 to 15 different friends and none of them could be from the same country, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way if you are young to like go out and branch out and meet different people and get yourself on the journey of like networking that kind of way. I don't know if that really makes sense to anyone, but yeah, it's like, you can network in Australia and that could get you overseas, but you could also probably have a bigger chance of getting overseas a lot quicker if you probably were hanging out in Bali, because it is still that little bit cheaper.
Yeah, and plus I just think like obviously the reach, the network there is a lot bigger. Like it just take you to, I reckon, to interesting places and stuff.
Yeah.
Things that you probably didn't even think about. And so if you were to go down that avenue, you'd probably go to Bali, and if you're like young as well, take a bit of risk and see where you're at when you're at 30.
Yeah, Bali is an interesting place. It's a cool place, but it is kind of like a land of opportunity that over there. It is still a lot cheaper than Australia though. I will say that. It is still it's getting very expensive, but it's still cheaper than Australia. The place here, man, this place is expensive.
Like if you wanted, to branch out, if you're in the media space, you need to look over there as well. New Zealand, it's close. Look what's happening over there in terms of is there work there. Like you need to utilise, and you can't really say no. Like if you want to have like sustainable income, like you just can't stay the area. It would be nice. So you like traveling at the start's cool, but after a while, you want that routine. You want that kind of life. Like traveling at the start's cool when you're younger, but as the clock keeps ticking, you get a bit older, and you want that. The grey hairs are popping, and
There's a couple.
Big shout out to the grey hairs.
I mean, at least you got hair on your head. That's always a bonus.
We'll have to start dyeing it soon. But anyway, but yeah, like you need to reassess. I think if you want that routine, which what I'm doing now, kind of thing, or I am doing it in terms of doing the management side of things and trying to get athletes at a more local level than fully abroad with during media and like flying overseas all the time, which is cool, but there's no place like home.
I mean, 10 years in the industry, right? That's a lot of traveling.
Yeah, a lot of traveling, a lot of flying, and don't get me wrong, still love it, but at the same time, you do want to do your routine at home. For me, I think probably the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. How does it work in terms of like, you got a partner and stuff? How long has she been on board with you while you've been doing this media? And is that kind of like one of the biggest driving factors as to why you want to start making it a little bit more Australian based?
You look at for me, back to the grey hairs, you look at your age, and you don't want to, like for me, I don't want to be making hype videos of 22-year-olds in the CrossFit gym
Throwing weights around.
Yeah, just that doesn't make sense. Like for someone my age, it's like, and so you got to look at other avenues as well. And so that's basically it. And as you get older, and I know I'm sounding a bit like,
I mean, you're only like 34, so everyone just calm down. I know he's young.
Yeah, I'm in my mid-30s, but like I'm looking ahead. You got to see it. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, you gotta no stop in a while and like reassess where you're at. That's what I'm doing.
Is that kind of like that drive and that motivation, that like planning, and were your parents a similar way as you guys were growing up? Is that like something that had like, because you know how everyone, like at the end of the day you're like a product of your environment, so the way you were molded as a child usually kind of can be seen throughout your aspects of life, like as you cruise along. And it seems like the way you are, is that like the go-getter attitude, does that come from like your family and stuff? Are they all kind of like similar?
Like mum's originally from the Philippines, and seeing what they had like from the village, and no running water and that kind of stuff. Like we're not allowed to complain here. Like we've got it easy. Like I know we whinge more than we've ever whinged, and we've sooked more than we've more than ever.
Yeah, 100%.
And that puts things in like perspective. And so I look at that, and having mums like migrants, like hustle mentality, like we weren't allowed to like sleep in as kids and all that kind of jazz. And like you talk to your schoolmates like growing up, and like I slept in until 9 o'clock, and it's like, oh, was that didn't really think that was a thing. But yeah, that's what when we were growing up, that was our kind of upbringing. Don't get me wrong, there was some mornings there we slept in, but for the most part,
yeah, mum was the same.
It was like a big no, especially dad as well.
I remember I used to try to sleep in, and my mum's partner at the time, he'd be like, "Nah, mate." He'd be like, "You're outside. You're doing the mowing and doing the chores." And
yeah,
you had I look back on it now, and I'm actually so glad it kind of happened. At the time, I was like really annoyed. I was like, "Why am I doing all this dumb stuff?" But then it instilled like this really big drive to be successful, and whether successful in any way you kind of want to look at it. But it gave me such a good work ethic, and I think sometimes you forget like kind of where you come from and the way you kind of was brought up. And in the day and age of where everything's so readily available, it's so easy to become lazy.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just need to think about that wooden spoon that got wrapped around your ass, when you were not doing your chores.
Yeah. Like at the time you're hating it, but looking back on it, it's you're grateful that those things happened. So
yeah, I never something I'd learnt as growing up in life, it wouldn't matter. It never mattered what actually happened, because everything kind of happens for a reason at some degree. Like you can get all, I like when people go, "Oh, you're getting all wooey on me," but it's not like anything spiritual. It's just like, you are definitely a product of your environment. That's like a given. You can see that in other people, whether it be where they were brought up, where they grew up, and you can, everything does happen for a reason. Whether you figure it out a day after, or you figure it out 2 years later on, you can always look back and go, "Oh yeah, actually that, it made sense." Like maybe you're going through like a little slump in your creative project, and you're like, "Oh, things aren't going the way I thought it was," and this, that, whatever. But I think always remembering
that's normal. That's normal. People going through slumps and that everyone goes through that. You would have had
heaps of them, man. Like surely there must have been times where you're doing really, really well, and then it just dropped right off, and you're like what's going on?
That's normal. And I just think it's just one of those things where you got to get back on your computer the next day and edit. And if it turns out crap and you did your best, that's all you can ask for. Like, doing your best and just keep going forward, and no doubt you'll get through it. It's easy to say, I know, but you really just have to get through it and do your best.
And what's on the horizon for old Patty? What do you got going on?
You just called me old. See, I'm old now.
Older. OL. Old Patty. Not old Patty.
What's on the horizon? Focusing on the management side with the athletes. So I've been pumping more of that content on social than I have been with just general like media stuff in the CrossFit space.
Yeah, I've been watching that. Who's flooding my feed with your athletes.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to pump that and trying to get that going basically, and see where that goes. But I'm enjoying it, and I always find it very rewarding, especially like doing competitions with them, like with Matilda over in Berlin, and got to watch her compete. And man, she's a cool customer. Like when there's a barbell or when she's competing, but there was a time there the buzzer went and she had to get this lift going, and she just got the lift, like the snatch, and then the buzzer went, and I don't really get that emotional or like come on, like lift it, and I was shouting from the fences kind of thing. And when she got it and she put the barbell down, she looked over and just smiled, just like just seeing her get that lift was pretty cool.
That's so sick, man. Well,
and like in the whole crowd.
No, carry on.
Yeah, the crowd just went off at that same time too. So it was a pretty cool moment.
It's cool to like see or like hear about those kind of stories where, there's a lot of emotion involved in something at so high pressure, and when you can actually, it might be something simple as like just lifting a bar over your head, but there's so much that leads up to that moment.
Yeah, like with this space media that is, like, I think the most rewarding part is like just being associated with the athletes and getting to know them, and just building that relationship. That's the most rewarding part. It's just the whole emotions. You'd ride the highs and lows with them, and that's the best bit.
Yeah, that's a good way to wrap this up. I reckon we're
getting pretty deep here.
We're getting deep. No, it's good, man. Well, I know you've definitely listened to every single episode of Creative Appetite, haven't you, Patty?
Loyal fans since day one. 40 episodes in. There's a camera there. I was just looking over there, where the phone is. It's like the camera's just there, Pat. What a deal.
Oh. Well, it has come to the end of the episode, and this is my favourite part. There's two things we like to do before we get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, you get to give any piece of advice that you think someone needs to start their project. And the second is you get a shout out a local legend who you think should come on the show. Local or international, actually, in your instance.
You don't need to be a baker to know that, bread tastes good. So if you want to try something, try it. Don't be intimidated just because you haven't tried it. So, if you think you can do it and learn from it, give it a go. And I think CJ Henry, originally from Brisbane, I'll give her a shout out if you get her on. She's an artist. She draws everything by hand, and it's nothing that's recreated by a computer or anything. It's just like old school. And you look at her work, and you go, is this done by computer? I kid you not. It's all done by hand. So CJ Henry is the artist, and she's from here, but if you would like to get her on,
it's going to be another 12 months of me chasing down this.
Please get her on. Like, big fan.
Boom. We're going to get her on. Well, guys, as you all know, this is the end of the episode. So please like, subscribe, and share. Tell your grandma about it. And most of all, thank you, Patty, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
And hang around for the next one. Let's go.
Thank you.